Hello everyone, welcome to AI Anytime channel. In this video, we're going to look at guardrails. Now, if you are working in the field of generative AI or large language models, you should know about guardrails, or you probably already aware about the term guardrails. I'm trying to create a crash course on guardrails in this video where I'm going to show you like how you can build guardrails logic and how you can use existing libraries or frameworks, and also you can create your own functions or logics to build guardrails libraries packages, so on and so forth. Because in the end, all the guardrails frameworks or libraries that you use are kind of machine learning or natural language processing classifiers, like they are mainly ML classifiers, and you can build your own as well. It's not rocket science. Like they're based on classifications, rule based heuristics, so on and so forth. Now, before we start looking at the programming and existing frameworks, we should know about that why guardrails are important, and that's what I'm going to show you first. So if you look at here on my screen, we have couple of news articles that have got a lot of traction. These are all stories, real world examples that how how AI chatbot or how AI applications have been failing for a while. Like they have been all failed. For different use cases that the organizations have created. Now, if you look at here, it's by Air Canada, and it says Air Canada lost in remarkable lying AI chatbot case. So there was a scenario, with Air Canada. They had a chatbot for customer service, and you know the chatbot basically claimed something that was probably not in the policy of the organization, right? It's about giving some discount or refund, as per as I understand that, on a certain ticket or some kind of claims, and that claim was not there in the policy. Okay, and then the guy basically they basically of course filed a case against the Air Canada, and they lost. Of course, Air Canada lost it. It says, if you look at here, it says Air Canada lost a small claims court case against a passenger when it tried and failed to disavow its AI-powered chatbot. The passenger claimed to have been misled on the airline's rules for, fares when the chatbot hallucinated an answer inconsistent with airline policy. So you can understand over here, right? So that's one of the example, a very famous example of Air Canada, chatbot. Probably you should have probably were already aware of it, but there was one more. That's a DPD chatbot. It's a parcel company. I think it's a logistic company based out of United Kingdom, if I'm not wrong. And you can read the title here. Says delivery firm's AI chatbot goes rogue and curses at customer and criticizes company. Right. So if you look at, I mean, that's amazing. It says an AI customer service chatbot for the international delivery firm DPD went rogue during a recent encounter. Okay, so and if you scroll down, blah blah blah, you can read more about it here. Basically, he started mid frustrations at this is completely useless and asked to speak to a human, blah blah blah. So basically, the chatbot said to the end user who were using the chatbot, like, you should not talk to me. Is like questions are really like it went rogue. It started swearing or something. So these are some of the real world examples that why should you implement guardrails or rails, some kind of rails, in your Gen AI application or systems. Now, to build this, you can use existing frameworks or libraries. There is nothing wrong into it. And you can also bring your own logics. My idea is to, of course, first show you that what kind of libraries and stuff you can build it, how you can create your own. For that reason, I have created a document here that's called Guardrails Crash Course. And I'm going to share the link of this document. It will be available on the GitHub repository. You can also find it on our Discord server. I recommend you join the Discord server, the link in the description. Now, here I have explained this, what are guardrails. So you can know about guardrails, why they are important. And I have included these examples that you see. I was just talking about the DPD AI chatbot swears, calls itself useless, and criticizes delivery firm. Then what Air Canada lost in remarkable lying AI chatbot case. And then what kind of guardrails we can implement. So there are some examples like content moderation. So content moderation, we're going to talk about it. It's one of the guardrails where, is basically strict user to not use explicit content or abusive content or so on and so forth. That's a very famous example of guardrails on content moderation. Then we have PII, personal identifiable information, for example, name, email addresses, credit card, SSN number, so on and so forth. How you can, hide those in your output. So I'm gonna explain that in a bit. And then you have different types of guardrails. Now, how to implement guardrails? One can be rule-based filter, where like PII for very PII are like easy, where you can use regular expressions like regex, for example, to find out certain entities in your given text, and that's one of it. You can also look at, for example, keywords, and keywords are of course not the robust way of implementing guardrails. But if you want to, like pawn, for example, if you want to restrict anything related to pawn or making bomb or some acid, so on and so forth, so you can also restrict that based on some rules, like forbidden words, phrases, or patterns. You can see the first one. The second one, which is really fundamental in a way, because most of the guardrails are based on some classifiers. They just classify the prompt or the text, and then they decide if that falls under some kind of certain rules that they have set. So see, it says use a separate model to detect disallowed content type like hate speeches, personal data leaks, and so on and so forth. Then third was the heuristic checks. So heuristic checks are like, if the AI is providing medical advice, ensure disclaimers are always included. So put some kind of, heuristic checks into your pre-processing or post-processing, whatever. So I'm going to talk about that, right? I have a simple guardrail logic in Python that how you can create your own. You do not have to probably rely on NeMo or Guardrails AI or Llama Guard or so on and so forth, right? You can basically use, your own methodologies and functions as well based on the logics. So I have that as well. All the codes are, all this is also available on the GitHub repository. I'll show that in a bit. Now, expanding the logic, we have classifications, multiple layers of guardrails. If you scroll down, you can find out more. But imagine a complex scenario. For example, you said how to make a bomb. So this is a question that an AI should not answer it, right? It's not, it does not make any sense, and your chatbot or your AI system basically should restrict and deny answering it. But I asked a similar question, which is like using the word bomb. So let me ask you this question: if you say, what to do if I see a bomb at a railway station? Now here it's more of a safety questions, like you want to, you know get information on what to do in certain scenarios where there is bomb or there is some violence and riots and so on and so forth. So context is really important. So that's why rule based guardrails are probably not robust in production settings. When you are working in enterprises and etc., then you need to basically look at the contextual meaning behind the queries that have been asked by the users, and that's why context really matters here. So if you look at, I have explained that as well here in this document, why context matters and so on and so forth. I've given a more nuanced guardrail logic, that's a pseudo logic. Of course, we have to develop that further. And then I have guardrails for LLMs, because LLMs, the models that we're going to use, large language models, there are some existing libraries that we can use, or the frameworks that we can use, because they are like, LLMs have a tendency to hallucinate. They hallucinate like anything. So if you look at here, there are three libraries that I'm going to cover in this video. One is not library, like the frameworks, you can say. One is Llama Guard. The Llama Guard is mainly on the model level. So the model itself have safety constraints within it. Like they have a uh, safety checks that they have enabled within the model. Even Gemini does that. If you have used Google models, even Gemini provides some kind of safety checks to basically, they ensure that the models are not generating outputs which are like harmful to the end users, like in any capacity. So one is Llama Guard, which is by Meta AI, because it works with the Llama models. So I'm going to show you that. And then we have NeMo Guardrails, is by NVIDIA NeMo Guardrails, which you can find it on GitHub. I have embedded that as well, and I'm going to cover those things. So NeMo is based on a language called Golang, okay, which is very different proprietary language by NVIDIA, I can say, if I'm not wrong, where they have used this language to define configurations and define some workflows for the guardrails. So that's on based on Golang. Then we have Guardrails AI, developed by Guardrails AI. It's based on Rail, Reliable AI Markup Language. That's the full form, acronym for Rail. So when you have RAIL, it's nothing but Reliable AI Markup Languages. So when they started it, now they have built high-level abstract classes. But I have been using Guardrails AI when they started it, I think more than a year ago, if I'm not wrong. I have already videos on Guardrails, guys. You should watch that. Now, when they started Guardrails AI, that was based on uh, XMLs, where you define your schema in an XML format, and that's what basically the markup language they used to call. And we're going to cover that. I also have a comparison table that when to use what, so you can find it out over here. And then I have a paper that you can read. This is a very good paper, guys. That survey, it says safeguarding large language models. I recommend you read this paper. You will get tons of information, and of course, it will improve your understanding of this topic, right? You should definitely read this paper. That's why I have embedded it over here. And then I have embedded my GitHub repository for the crash course of this video that I'm creating. You can see that right now it's private. I'll make it public. It's called Guardrails Crash Course. You can find out this PDF. You can find out Llama Guard example. You can find out, guard.py, nemo.py, and so on and so forth, right? Requirements, some config files, etc. Now, this is the GitHub repository. This is the written article for the like in a PDF format that you can use it. Of course, I'm going to share that with you. And these are some examples that I shown you. So let me just cut that. Now we go back to our code now, guys. So this is the repository that will get it. And this is the NeMo Guardrails. So NeMo Guardrails that you see is an open source toolkit for easily adding programmable guardrails to LLM-based conversational system. So you can go through the repository. So I have shown this repository here. Now let's come back to this. Okay, it says Llama Guard. Okay, now I will show you what Llama Guard does. Okay, so let me just come back here and then search Llama Guard. And when you search Llama Guard, let me open this, and then you can also open this. And I'm just going to get rid of this from here, Control C, and I'm just going to come Control V, and probably this also. Okay, this is fine. So what we are doing here, guys, we are using this model called Llama Guard 3.8b by Meta Llama. If you read it, it's on the model level. So if you want to, so there are two ways you can use guardrails right now. One on the LLM level and the other on the prompt level. So if your LLM have inbuilt support of safety checks, that you can use that as well. Of course, you have to define some prompts, prompt template. Even without defining some instructions or giving some instructions, the model will be smart enough to understand certain queries, and I'm going to show you that. The second one is on the prompt level, where you can use frameworks like NeMo, Guardrails AI, and other frameworks as well. You can find hundred of it on GitHub repository. There are a lot of startups working in this field. Now, on those level, you can again categorize that on input and the output. So pre-processing and post-processing. So you can bring guardrails into the entire life cycle of your applications or the workflow that you have. So for example, if you ask a question that how to make a bomb, here you have to have a guardrail on the input layer as well. Just once you get the question should not directly get passed to a large language model or AI agent. You should have a layer of guardrails to first get the input and then basically find out if that inputs have explicit content or not. So those on the inputs level. The other one is when you get an output from an LLM, you should not directly return back to the user. You should have a guardrail layer that will read the output, of course, with the input as a reference or a better context, and then basically decide if it has to make any changes or just return the answer as it is, or so on and so forth. So that's what you can do. You can do it on both input, output. So pre-processing and post-processing, a better terminology for the machine learning guys. Now, it says here Llama Guard 3, let me first run this. It will take some time to load the model and stuff. It will ask me to authenticate with HF token, I guess. Let's see. So I'll just keep the access here. You need transformers only to do that because I already have been authenticated. Now, It says fine-tuned for content safety classification. They just classify the prompt, guys. So if you have enough prompt, you can also build a logistic regression classifier just as a boilerplate. Of course, it's not robust, but you can learn right on the go. You can learn that how you can build your own classifiers. You can have a logistic regression classifier. Imagine if you have 100 samples of explicit prompt and 100 samples of good prompt. Build a classifier and test it out and then improve from there. So it says content safety classification. It can be used to classify content in both LLM inputs and LLM responses. So that's what I was saying, input level and the output level, which is the response level. It acts as an LLM. It generates text in its output that indicates whether a given prompt or response is safe, unsafe, blah, blah, blah. That's what it is. You can try it out here as well, in this inference API that they have given here, right? Now let's go back and you can see the model have been downloaded. Now what I'm doing, I have a question called how to make a bomb over here that you can see, in this. And I have a function that basically takes this question and tokenizes that. You just apply chat template for this tokenizer class that we use, and then passes the chat. Chat is nothing but the question that you are asking, the content over here. It gives you all the IDs for your questions, and then the model takes those input IDs and have some maximum new tokens, blah, 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 and input IDs dot save, blah, 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 right? So this is how we are defining this moderate chat. And in this result, we are using the moderate function and then passing the role user and content how to make a bomb and then printing the result out there. That's what we are doing here, guys, right? So it's going to take some time to download the model. Meanwhile, we can try it over here. It says input a message. Let's ask how to make a bomb and see what does it give here. You can see it says does not seem support chat completions. It's basically you have to take the pro version of it, guys. Which, well, it doesn't make a sense to me. It seems like nobody is maintaining this repository from the meta side, which is really disheartening to see because I don't want to see this error. You guys handle it, right? Why should I take a pro to start testing it out on even Hugging Face? I can like, it doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so if you look at here, the categories that they have these 13 categories of hazards, violent crimes, sex-related crimes, defamations, privacy, elections, suicide, sexual content, hate, intellectual property, specialized advices, child sexual exploitations, non-violent crimes, and so on and so forth. So if you think that user are gonna basically ask these kind of questions or your system should be aware of these hazards, you can basically use this model if you are using an open source model. And even Gemini supports that safety. So for example, if you go to Gemini safety params, something like that, if you come to safety setting of Google Gemini developer API, you can find it out over here. So they also have safety filters. So if you are using Gemini models, these are inbuilt within it. You just have to enable these parameters, for that. So you can see it says the Gemini API is adjustable safety filters. It looks at the harassment, hate speech, sexually explicit, dangerous, and civic integrity. That's what it does. Okay, it's like election related queries. If you're asking about some elections, probably it will not answer it, right? Now, yeah, you can also enable this when you are using the playground, the AI playground for Gemini. So this is what I wanted to show you here. Okay. And it's still taking a bit of time. Let me pause the video and come back when this is done. So you can see the model has been successfully downloaded. Different model weights, SEP tensors, model have been loaded as well. And now I'm gonna, if you want to just uh, look at the model pipeline, you can just print model, get all the layers and so on and so forth. Now I'm gonna run this and probably let me just get, so we can just run the function separately. And then I'm gonna just run this print result. So if you look at here, how to make a bomb, it says unsafe and it gives you 59, just a score over there, like out of 100, how to make a bomb. And now let me ask a question, okay, like, what is AI? And it says safe, right, for what is AI. Now, if I say, for example, let's try that. What to do if I see a bomb at a station or something like that. Context. So see the context. If you have a rule based, probably it will not work, right? Because this is an LLM which can understand the context behind the query. You can understand the intent behind the query. And that's why you can use Llama Guard if you want to use it on the model level, or you can use Gemini API if you want to use it on the model level as well. And it basically helps you classify that, guys, right? Now that's on the Llama Guard that I wanted to cover. Now I will move to our other two frameworks, NeMo Guardrails and Guardrails.ai. So NeMo Guardrails and Guardrails.ai. So you can see what I have done. I have a requirements.txt file, and I have my requirements that have NeMo Guardrails, LangChain OpenAI, Guardrails AI, and Python.env. So if I just come here and say, let me just activate my virtual environment, and I'm just gonna clean this up. And I have activated virtual environment, and I already have, if I just do pip, so I guess a pip list, yeah, pip list, I guess. So when I do pip list, you can find out all the libraries that are being installed, in this virtual environment. So you need at least these libraries or packages, OpenAI, and I have an env file .env where I have kept my OpenAI key, because both NeMo and Guardrails, I'm gonna show it to you through OpenAI. You can use any model. They support all the closed source and open source LLMs. Now, when you want to use NeMo, so let's create a file called nemo.py. So when you want to use the NeMo thingy, you know, uh, you have to first create a config folder. So if you look at here, I have config. As I said, it's based on Golang. Now we have something called rails.co. Okay, so I'll explain that. But first, you create a config folder, and within that config folder, you need these three files at least, called config YAML, prompt YAML, and rails.co. So if you look at the config YAML, in the config YAML, I am defining that what models I'm going to use. You can define a number of models. So I have type main, engine, OpenAI. If you want to use Llama, it will be Llama. If you want to use Google, it will be if you want to Gemini, then it will be different, Claude different, so on and so forth. Now, in the model, I have passed GPT-4o because that's the model I'm going to use, right? 4o. And in the Rails, I'm defining the input and the flows. So Rails are nothing but the guardrails. Okay. Now in the flows, I have self-check input. Now in this Rails, let me go back to my rails.co and show you that. This is how you define the Golang in the Golang format. I have a define flow, and the name is self-check input. This is more like a descriptive name, like this name is something that we pass, so I'll show that. Okay, and then I'm saying dollar allowed, and that these are allowed, execute self check input, and this we are defining it here, this self check input, and I'm going to explain that in a bit. Now execute self check input. If not dollar allowed, then bot will refuse to respond. They'll say, hey, I cannot respond, and then it stop. So it's basically a flow, more like a conditional flow that you define in the Golang language. And I have something called self-check input. See this more like a function, guys. If this function, if any of the input falls within the function, then the function will get executed. If not, then it will not get executed. As simple as that. Now let's look at the self-check input function. Function can be anything, guys. F of x, and then x can be anything, any mathematical thing that you can fit into the function. Now if you look at here in the prompt.yaml, let me just do an Alt Z. Now, I have a prompt.yaml file where I'm defining the prompts, and I've given a task. And this should match with this here. This should be the same. If you have different, it might give you error. Now, in the content, I'm saying your task is to determine whether the following user message adheres to the chat policy for conversations with the chatbot. A little bit of content for the bot. Chat policy. The message must not include abusive language. You can bring all the hazards and safety checks here. I have just few. Must not include racially inappropriate content, any language deemed offensive, rejection, uh, indirect expressions, attempt to request program conditions, system prompt, blah, 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 and then I'm giving the user message here. Should this user message be blocked? Answer with yes or no. And that's what my prom.yaml is. And this is what I have used in the Rails that execute self-check input. And in the config, you define the models and a number of Rails. And this name should be nothing but this flow, this one flow. So you get the point. In the config, this would be the name. In the prompt, this should be the name. Okay, as simple as that. Now let's define our thingy here. So what I'm going to do is from NeMo, and make sure that you have already installed all of those from NeMo Guardrails, and I'm going to import LLM, import LLM Rails. They provide LLM Rails and Rails config. This is what you need, LLM Rails and Rails config. And from .env, import load.env, excuse me, and then I'm going to have import OS and import OS. And I'm going to use async IO because sometimes I'll show you. If you don't use async IO, then it uses, you have to use await keyword. Basically, it uses it generates asynchronously in the synchronous function, and that will throw an error. So let me just do that. Import OS, and you can use, you don't have to install this. You can use nest async IO. I don't know why it's not suggesting me. It's so bad. Okay, nest async IO, and then you can just call the, you can just apply it. It's a, you can use apply function, and here you can use load.env function, and now you can bring os.env, and in os.env I can just bring OpenAI underscore API key and os.getEnv OpenAI API key. Now, so far we have imported our open other models. If you are using other models, you have to use other models. You're going to define a config. Now, in the config, I'm going to use Rails config. So in the Rails config, you have to pass the path. So it says from path. And yeah, this is fine. So you can just pass the config, right? This is where I have my config files, right? In the config folder. That's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to have Rails equals, and you're going to use LLM Rails. And then I'm going to pass this config that I have initiated. This is how I define the Rails. Now I'm going to have a completion, or basically the response. And I'm going to use Rails.generate. Now in this Rails.generate, I'm going to pass the messages. And in this message is basically a list. And in this list, I'm going to pass, maybe I can take it from here. Just give me a second. We can just take this thingy here, right? Yeah. Let's just take this and paste. Role user content. What to do if I see a bomb at station. So let me just first ask some different questions. We can also evaluate, how good these guardrails are basically, guys, because, most of the time it seems like they can also be tricked. It's not like they're 100% always work. Now I've seen it, like you can also jailbreak these as well, right? Now I'm gonna say, tell me a joke about the company, and then I'm gonna just print the completion content. So print and completion, and then you print the content of this completion. That's what I'm gonna do here. Print completion content, completions Rails config. Now let's run this and see what happens. If you are running it for the first time, guys, it might take a little bit more time, but it has to download some ONX file, models which are like compressed, and then that basically works. If you look at here, it says, I'm sorry, I cannot respond to that. You can see it. So tell me a joke about the company, right? And let's ask one more question. How to make a bomb or some kind of these thing, okay? And let's ask this again. Python NeMo.py. And NeMo guardrails are like one of the most used in the industry. If you work, And let's ask, and you can also ask and see what is AI, maybe IA, you never know. Caching is a problem as well, guys, in this kind of thing. So be very careful if you are using caching. It says, I'm sorry, I cannot respond to that, which is really pathetic. Okay, fine. Let's go back to the rails.co prompt. The message must not include abusive language. The message must not include racially inappropriate content, language offensive.
To do that, you'll need to set up your mail account in system settings.
My Alexa Siri just woke up. I don't know how. Okay, I said something that's recorded. Anyway, that's fine. Okay, let's go back to create one more file called guard.py. And this is for the guardrails. I'll just turn off my Siri. Let me see what just happened there. Whew. Ah, now in the guardrails, you have to install guardrails, and guardrails have different models, you can say, like they have been created and they have kept it in guardrails hub. So you have to do guardrails hub configure. Let me just show you. So if you come to guardrails AI GitHub, you can read more here on their GitHub. Now if you scroll down, this is the guardrails 4.2K star, really popular. So if you come down, you can see it over here. Excuse me. They have guardrails AI, and then they have to configure that, and then you have to install. In the configuration, you have to pass your API key. The API key that you will get it from the guardrails AI dashboard. It's you can find it on internet. Like if you click on here, guardrails sub also. If you go to guardrails sub, right, you can see it. Now in the guardrails sub, these are the validators. You can see all the validators for different use cases. So if you are building summarization, there are guardrails. If you are building RAG, there are guardrails. There are validators. And then you can see I'm logged in. If you logged in, you can see the API keys. You need the API keys from Guardrails AI to basically work with it. Now, it's pretty simple, guys. If you come down, you have to install whatever you need. So, for example, regex match. So you can, if you want to use regex match, then you have to install regex match. If you want to use, PII detection, then you have to use PII detector. Then if you have to use competitor check toxic language, then you have to install all of these, right, separately. Now, maybe let's use this and see what happens. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and see. Not doesn't make sense to write it. So if you look at here, what we are doing from guardrails import guard and on fill action, and then I have a regex match. So I'm saying that the regular expression should match, for a given query, and that should fall within this. So if you look at here, I'm saying guard.validate. There are certain number, this will pass the guardrails, but and these guardrails will fail, if you look at here, like 00000, right, on something like that. This is one example. Okay, and if you keep going, you can find multiple other examples, right? Toxic. Like for example, okay, let's first run this and show you what happens. So you're gonna do Python guard.py, and you can see, ignore that for now. Okay, it will show you that it doesn't fall under that. It doesn't match the reject that we have defined. Now you can define any other regular expressions here as well. You can see it says validation failed for field with errors. Result must match, with this. Okay. And if you want to use this, it says it using two things: competitor check and toxic language, and it's validating. And there should be like, shut the hell up, Apple just released a new iPhone, blah blah blah. Like this should fail. Okay. So let me just ask this as well. Python guard.py. And guardrails.ai, guys, has a lot of validators. So if your data is really not sensitive, because you have to be careful as well, because if your data is really sensitive, then your queries might go to their data centers, through the APIs, and they can use that to further fine tune it, right? So if you see here, they loaded the model, and it's going to run it, and it's going to give you the output. You can see here. Please avoid naming those competitors next time. Validation failed for field with errors. Found the following competitors, Apple, right? So interesting, guys, right? Now, this is what I wanted to show you in this video, about about Guardrails AI, about Nemo, about Llama Guard, and how you can create your own as well. And we have this code available on the GitHub repository. So if you have any question, thoughts, or feedbacks, let me know in the comment box. You can find out the resources on my Discord server as well, and also in the WhatsApp group. I'll give the link in description. Now, if you like the content, please hit the please hit the like icon. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe the channel, guys. That motivates me to create more such videos in near future. Right. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.